How to tag multiple elements in Revit? Well, Revit on itself doesn't support that, but with Revit API, there is a workaround. Now, what we're going to be doing is actually selecting multiple elements and then collecting the parameters that we need to show and then pasting them in an annotation symbol. To demonstrate, let's see. Here I have selected 3 rooms and we're going to be collecting the names of these rooms. As you can see, here we have an annotation symbol that displays the names of the rooms that we have selected. Obviously, if you change the name of these rooms, this will not update. But obviously, you can do that if you actually save the element ID right here. You can obviously add a lot of functionality and you can make it update with a simple click of a button. So to see how we can do this, let's jump right in. So here I have a Revit sample project and we're going to be collecting multiple rooms and then placing an annotation family like the one we have right here. It's a simple annotation family that have multiple rows that we can populate with information, and we can change the height of these rows and have a parameter for how many rows to display. I'll load it into the project. And if we place it right here and populate the first 5 rows, we can see these rows. And if we change the number of rows, it will only display those rows. You can download this family from the description box or create your own, obviously. And to start, here we have open Jeremy's template. I will leave a link in the top right corner to one of my previous videos where I explain how to download this template and how to get it up and running. First of all, we're going to be deleting this and leaving only the transaction. So first of all, I'm going to be creating an I collection, which is like a list to collect all of the elements that the user will select. Then we need to create a method for changing the parameters. A method like this will allow us to change the parameters multiple times and writing it only once. So this method will take an element and a list of values to populate its parameters. And we're going to be using a for each loop. And if you don't know what a loop is, I definitely recommend watching some basic tutorials on C#. And besides our for each loop, we need an integer to keep counting how many times this loop runs. So integer I equals to 0. Parameter p, x, dot lookup parameter, t, and plus the number, which is referring to these parameters right here, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Yeah, I'm gonna be changing this from 0 to 1 because it actually starts at T1, T2, T3, and so on. And then parameter P2 x dot lookup parameter V sum of lines, and this is referring to this parameter right here, and we're gonna be setting it to I minus 1. Then we're going to retrieve the family, this family right here, from the project database. So to do that, we're going to be using link, and to use link, just go to namespace right here and type using and multiple tag equals filtered element collector document, where element is the element type, of category the category, and then where x equals to the name multiple tag first as family symbol, and we need to get it as a family symbol. Then we're going to our transaction. We're going to change it to multiple tags. Then back to our I collection, which have all of the elements that the user has chosen. So inside of the transaction, we need a for each loop for our collection to collect the name of the rooms and store them in a list that we will give to the method. So here I'm getting the element, which is the room itself, from the reference using this method, which is document.getElement, and you can either supply it with the reference or you can give it an element ID and it will return an element. Then parameter, and we're going to be getting a built-in parameter. So parameter p equals e.getParameter, and we're going to be getting a built-in parameter. But if you want to get another parameter which is not built in, you need to use this method right here, which is the lookup parameter. But be aware, lookup parameter and get parameter will only get you an instance parameter in this case, because we're actually choosing the element instance. And if you want to get some type parameters, you need to actually get the element type, not the element itself. And you can find a list of all of the built-in parameters in the Revit API docs under built-in parameter enumeration. And just in case one of the rooms doesn't have a name, or if the parameters that we are collecting is null or empty, we need to put a fail stop in place. So we type in if p equals to null, or, so this is the sign for or, p as string equals an empty string, we type in dusk dialog show. We need to show an error message and say this parameter is empty, and then return result.failed. And then we're going to be getting the string for the room name. Now that we got the name, we need to actually give it to a list to give it to our method. So I'm going to be going right here above our transaction, creating a new list and adding it room names dot add room name. And then to actually place the annotation family mentioned before, we need to set up something called a sketch plane. So we type sketch plane sp and create a sketch plane of the current view and set it as the default. And then we need to collect a point of insertion. So we type xyzp1 UI doc selection pick point, which is only gonna prompt the user to pick a point on the view. And then for placing the family instance, we're gonna type family instance, multiple tag instance, doc create a new family instance. If I hover here, we can see it takes an XYZ of origin, a family symbol, and a view. And we supplied all of these right here. And after we place it, we are going to change its parameters with the method that we wrote. So we type in change parameters, and here this is the instance, and this is the list of the strings. And then we can show a task dialog telling the user that he successfully placed a multiple tag. So I'm going to be copying this and changing from error to success, obviously. You've created a multiple tag family. And then we're going to be leaving the tx.commit, which is going to be finishing up our transaction. So now let's close Revit and start the debugging. We're going to be loading it, always load. So here we are in debugging mode, as you can see. Let's go and see how our little code will perform. So external tools, VA, tag multiple elements. I'm going to be selecting this room and this room, and why not this one? Finish, and then you've created a multiple tag family. Okay, so it worked and kind of didn't. So here we have unoccupied. Let's see what the problem is. I think it has to do with the built-in parameter. Yeah, so I went back to Revit API docs in the built-in parameter enumeration, and I found this parameter right here, which I think is the right one. Okay, I've pasted the new one. Let's apply our code changes and go back to Revit. Okay, it works. Okay, one more thing we can add. So if we go to where the user actually is prompted to pick the objects and hover over here, we can see that there are 4 overloads. Let's check them out. So if we check this one right here, we can see that we can give it an object type and set up a selection filter. A selection filter will allow the user to only choose those elements of a specific category that we specify. So instead of the user actually pressing the tab button to select the rooms, we can make it in a way that he can only select rooms. And to do that, we're going to be using a piece of code that I have actually copied from Jeremy's website, which I have not really yet understood. But as you can see right here we can specify what built-in categories we can allow the user to choose. Here I've copied this from a previous project where I wanted the user only to choose one of these categories, but for our purposes it's only OST rooms. So here now we set it up to built-in categories of only rooms, and you can obviously copy this piece of code to your own project, and I won't be leaving the source code of this project in the description box or anywhere else, because this is an educational channel, and I do believe that the best way you can learn how to work with Revit API is if you actually type the code yourself. I'm just gonna rename this too and go back to our pick object method and type new selection filter rooms. Now if I apply these changes, okay, it worked. As you can see, we can only choose rooms. And this is how we tag multiple elements in Revit. If you like this content, you can give me more ideas on what to do next. My contacts will be in the description box, and see you in the next one.